The Belgian Malinois
Easy
moved
now.
like death
It's okay.
itself. 38 kilos of muscle and fury. Its dark coat bristling, scar tissue cutting across its muzzle like a lightning strike frozen in flesh. The dog's eyes held no recognition, no mercy, only the raw, primal hunger of a predator that hadn't eaten in 48 hours. Corporal Sienna Kelly stood her ground. 5'3", 26 years old, dark brown hair pulled tight in a regulation bun. Eyes the color of storm clouds over the Indian Ocean. She didn't run, didn't scream, didn't give the men watching from outside the kennel the satisfaction of seeing fear. The dog named Apex launched forward, closing the distance between them in 3 powerful strides. Its jaws opened wide, revealing teeth designed by evolution to rip and tear. The scent of starvation and rage filled the enclosed space. Outside the chain-link fence, 8 SASR operators watched with cold anticipation. One of them, a younger trooper named Cooper, held his phone up, recording. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Die now, ya witch." The words echoed off concrete walls. Laughter followed, harsh, masculine, the sound of men who believed they were about to witness someone break. But that was 24 hours ago. Let me take you back to where this really began. The morning sun hadn't yet burned through the coastal haze when Sienna Kelly arrived at the main gate of Campbell Barracks. She carried everything she owned in a single Alice pack, the same model her father had carried 30 years earlier. The weight pressed familiar against her shoulders. 25 kilos of gear, clothing, and one item that mattered more than all the rest combined, her father's journal. The guard at the gate studied her identification with the same expression every guard had given her for the past 4 years. Skepticism mixed with something else. Curiosity, maybe, or pity. Military police dog handler. He read aloud from her orders. Corporal Sienna Kelly. She said nothing, just waited. He handed back her credentials. Building 7. The kennels are Outback. Warrant Officer Madsen is expecting you. The gate lifted. Sienna walked through, and with each step forward, she walked deeper into a past that had never really let her go. 12 years. That's how long her father had been dead. Warrant Officer Class 1 Garrett Kelly, 3 Squadron. SASR, the best K-9 handler the Australian Special Forces had ever produced. The man who could walk into a pack of trained war dogs and have them following him like puppies within minutes. The man who taught Sienna everything she knew about reading animals, understanding their language, becoming part of their world. The man who died in Taran Kowt, Uruzgan Province, in 2011, when an IED tore his vehicle apart and scattered his remains across a dusty road thousands of kilometers from home. At least, that's what the official report said. Sienna knew better. The kennels sat at the eastern edge of the training compound, downwind from everything else. Smart placement, dogs made noise, and war dogs made more noise than most. She could hear them now as she approached, barking, howling, the sound of animals bred and trained for violence, waiting for their next mission. The facility itself looked exactly like every other military building she'd ever seen. Cinder block construction, flat roof, industrial lighting, functional to the point of being hostile. The only concession to aesthetics was a faded mural near the entrance, a German Shepherd in tactical gear, painted in desert camouflage colors. The door wasn't locked. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The smell hit her first. Not unpleasant, just intense. Dog, concrete, disinfectant, and underneath it all, the distinct scent of controlled aggression. 12 kennels lined the main corridor. 6 on each side. Most were occupied. She could see the dogs now, Belgian Malinois primarily, with a few German Shepherds mixed in. All of them alert, all of them watching her with the kind of focus that most humans couldn't maintain for more than a few seconds. Sienna felt something inside her chest unclench for the first time in weeks. She was home. Well, fresh meat. The voice came from her left. Sienna turned and found herself looking at a man who seemed designed to intimidate. 6'2", maybe 110 kilos. Most of it muscle gone slightly soft around the edges. Buzzcut hair going grey at the temples. A face that looked like it had been carved from granite and then used as a punching bag for target practice. Warrant Officer Class 1 Barry Baz Madsen. The file she'd read had his photograph. But photos never captured the full presence of a man like this. He stood with his weight forward, shoulders squared, taking up more space than strictly necessary. Alpha posture, the body language of someone who expected submission and usually got it. "Sir," Sienna said, keeping her voice neutral. "Corporal Kelly reporting as ordered." Madsen looked her up and down with the kind of appraisal usually reserved for livestock. His expression suggested he found her wanting. "Kelly," he repeated, rolling the name around like he was testing it for weaknesses. "Any relation to Garrett Kelly?" Her heart rate kicked up. but her face showed nothing. Yes, sir, he was my father. Something flickered across Madsen's features. Too quick to identify. Surprise, recognition, guilt. It vanished before she could be certain. Garrett Kelly's daughter. Madsen's tone had shifted, though she couldn't quite pinpoint how. Flatter, maybe more carefully controlled. Didn't know he had a kid in the army. Yes, sir. He's dead. I know, sir. Been dead a long time. 12 years, sir. Madsen stared at her for a long moment. The silence stretched between them like a tripwire, waiting for someone to stumble. Finally, he turned and started walking down the corridor between the kennels. Come on then, I'll show you around. Sienna followed, watching the dogs as she passed. They watched back. Some whined softly, others growled. One, a massive Malinois with a coat so dark it looked black, tracked her movement with absolute stillness. That one had a scar across its muzzle and eyes that had seen things. Combat eyes. That's Apex, Madsen said, noticing her attention. Meanest mongrel we've got. Sent 3 handlers to medical in the last year. Damn dog's more trouble than he's worth. But he's got the best nose in the program. Sienna stopped in front of Apex's kennel. The dog didn't move, didn't react, just stared at her with those cold, calculating eyes. She'd seen that look before in her father's dogs. In the working animals who'd been pushed too hard, punished too often, treated like tools instead of partners. What's his training regimen? She asked. Standard protocols, discipline through consequences. You give him a command. He obeys, or he gets corrected. Corrected how? Madsen's jaw tightened. That's above your pay grade. Corporal, you're here to learn, not question. Sienna turned away from the kennel. Meeting Madsen stared directly. My father taught me that dogs aren't machines. Sir, they're teammates. You can't beat loyalty into them. Your father's methods died with him in Taran Kout, Madsen said, and there was an edge to his voice now. Sharp and dangerous. We do things my way here. You got a problem with that? There's the door. Before Sienna could respond, a voice interrupted from the entrance. Baz, you bullying the new handler already? She hasn't even unpacked yet. The man who walked in moved with the careful precision of someone whose body remembered how to be dangerous, but whose age had started sending reminders about limits. Late 60s, silver haircut, military short, a weathered face mapped with the kind of lines you earned over decades of service. He walked with a barely perceptible limp, right leg, probably shrapnel, but his shoulders stayed square and his eyes stayed sharp. Dusty Miller. Sienna recognized him instantly from photographs. Her father's best mate, his patrol commander during their deployment to Timor. The man who'd been at Garrett Kelly's side through a dozen operations that would never appear in official records. The man who, according to her research, had retired from active duty 5 years ago but couldn't quite leave the regiment behind. Now he worked as a civilian contractor, training K-9 units, passing on knowledge earned through blood and time. Dusty looked at Sienna and she watched his expression shift through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, shock, and finally, something that looked almost like pain. Jesus Christ, he said softly, Garrett's little girl. The kennel fell silent. Even the dogs seemed to sense the change in atmosphere. Madsen glanced between them. You know her? Know her? Dusty moved closer, his limp more pronounced now, like the shock had made him forget to compensate. I held this kid when she was 10 years old, crying at her father's memorial service. I promised Garrett I'd look after her if anything happened to him. He stopped a few feet away, studying Sienna's face with an intensity that made her want to look away. She didn't. You have his eyes, Dusty said. Same storm grey color, same expression, like you're always analyzing, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Sir, Sienna managed, her voice rougher than she intended. Warrant Officer Miller, it's good to see you again. Just Dusty now, mate, I'm not active duty anymore. He paused. Does your mother know you're here? My mother passed away 6 years ago. Cancer. Something in his face broke just a little. I didn't know. I'm sorry, Sienna. It was quick. She didn't suffer much. The lie came easily. Her mother had suffered tremendously, wasting away over 18 months while Sienna watched helplessly. But some truths were too heavy to share with strangers, even strangers who'd once been family. Madsen cleared his throat, touching reunion and all. But we've got work to do. Kelly, you're assigned to Kennel 3. Gear Locker is. She needs to get settled first. Dusty interrupted. Baz, I'll handle the orientation. You've got that briefing with Major Connolly at 0900. Madsen's expression suggested he wanted to argue. But something in Dusty's tone, the quiet authority of a man who'd earned respect through decades of service, made him reconsider. Fine, but Kelly, you're on shift at 1400 hours. Don't be late. He turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing off concrete until the door slammed shut behind him. Dusty waited until the sound faded completely before speaking. Walk with me. They left the kennel building and headed toward the eastern perimeter of the compound, where the manicured grounds gave way to scrub brush and sand. The Indian Ocean gleamed in the distance, grey-blue under morning clouds. Seagulls circled overhead, their cries mixing with the distant sound of surf. Dusty didn't speak for almost 5 minutes, just walked, hands clasped behind his back, that slight limp marking every third step. Finally, when they were far enough from any buildings that conversation couldn't be overheard, he stopped. Why are you really here, Sienna? She'd prepared for this question, had practiced the answer in mirrors, refined it until it sounded natural. But standing in front of this man, this connection to her father, the rehearsed words felt hollow. I'm a military police dog handler. Sir, I requested a transfer to. Bullshit. The word came out flat and certain. You could have gone anywhere. The RAF has a top program at Kimberley, Holsworthy, Townsville. Even private security contractors paid twice what the army offers. But you specifically requested SASR K-9 operations at Campbell Barracks. He turned to face her fully. The same unit your father served with. The same unit where he died. So I'll ask again, why are you really here? Sienna looked out at the ocean, watched waves break against the shore in endless, repetitive violence. When she spoke, she chose her words carefully. Do you believe my father died the way the report said? IED explosion, Taliban ambush, killed in action. Dusty went very still. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking what you believe. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush bone. Dusty studied her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Concern mixed with something darker. Fear, maybe. Your father was the best soldier I ever knew, he said finally. Best handler, best tactical mind, best mate a man could ask for. And yes, I've had questions about how he died. Questions I couldn't answer. Why not? Because I'm just one old man with suspicions and no proof. Because the official investigation was sealed. Because anyone I tried to talk to about it either got transferred or told me to let it go. He paused. Because I wasn't brave enough to push harder. Sienna reached into her jacket and pulled out a small notebook. Worn leather cover, pages yellowed with age. Her father's handwriting filled every available space. Cramped, efficient letters that packed maximum information into minimum space. Dad kept a journal. Mum found it in his personal effects. Gave it to me before she died. Most of it's encrypted, but I've been working on decoding it for 6 years. She opened to a marked page and handed it to Dusty. Read the entry from October 10, 2011, 5 days before he died. Dusty took the journal with the care usually reserved for religious texts. His eyes moved across the page, and Sienna watched his expression shift from curiosity to shock to something that looked like barely controlled rage. Jesus Christ, he whispered. The entry was short, written in the abbreviated code her father had developed. Part military shorthand, part personal cipher, but Sienna had broken it, word by painful word. October 10, 2011, TK Fob, confirmed 5 Vipers in the nest. BM is 1, possibly RV, at top. Smuggling op confirmed, not drugs, weapons grade, dest unknown but payment traced to offshore accounts. They know I know, going to brief DM tomorrow if I survive tonight's patrol. If something happens, trust the dogs, they know who the wolves are. Tell Sienna I love her. Dusty looked up from the journal, his face pale. BM, Baz Madsen. That's my conclusion. And RV, I think that's Colonel Richard Vance, Commander of Special Operations Integration. Vance has been at SOCOMD for 15 years. He's untouchable, decorated veteran, East Timor, Iraq. He's got political connections all the way to Canberra. I don't care who he knows. Sienna interrupted. I care that my father discovered something worth killing him over. And I care that the men responsible have been walking free for 12 years. Dusty handed back the journal. This is dangerous, Sienna. If you're right, if Garrett was murdered by fellow operators, then those same men are still here, still operating, still protected by the system. I know. They'll kill you, too, if they realize what you're doing. I know that, too. He studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, something in his expression shifted. The fear remained, but underneath it, she saw something else. Recognition, respect, the look of someone seeing a ghost and realizing it's come back to finish unfinished business. You're really going through with this? Yes, sir. Don't call me sir, if we're doing this, and God help me, I think we are. We do it as partners. As family. He extended his hand. Garrett saved my life in Uruzgan in 2009. I owe him everything. I should have pushed harder when he died. Should have demanded answers. Should have protected his legacy. Sienna took his hand. His grip was firm, calloused, the handshake of someone who'd spent a lifetime doing things that required hard work and harder choices. Help me now, she said. Help me finish what he started. What do you need? Time, access, information about who was on his final deployment, who had opportunity, who benefited from his death. I can get you that. But Sienna, he hesitated. If Baz Madsen is involved, he's dangerous, he's smart, well-connected, and he's got a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. You can't let him know you suspect him. I wasn't planning to. And there's something else you should know. Dusty glanced back toward the kennel building. Madsen requested a transfer out of 3 Squadron within 2 weeks of your father's death. Cited personal reasons, but 6 months later, he was reassigned back with a promotion, in a new position running the K-9 program. That's unusual. It's unheard of. Standard protocol is minimum 2 years before reassignment to the same squadron. Unless someone with serious pull intervened. Someone like Colonel Vance. Exactly. They stood in silence, watching the ocean. Sienna felt the weight of what she'd set in motion settling onto her shoulders. This wasn't just about personal revenge anymore. If her father had discovered a smuggling operation run by Shash operators, if he'd been murdered to keep that secret, then the corruption went deeper than she'd imagined. There's one more thing, Dusty said. If you're going to be here, if you're going to investigate while maintaining your cover as just another handler, you need to be good. Better than good, you need to be exceptional. Because the moment they realize you're Garrett Kelly's daughter with his skills, they'll be watching everything you do. I can handle the dogs. I know you can. I've read your file. Top marks at Holsworthy. Perfect scores on every certification. But these aren't RAF security dogs or police K9s. These are Shash combat dogs. The meanest, most dangerous animals the military produces. And they've all been trained by Madsen, using methods your father would have hated. He started walking back toward the compound. This afternoon, they're going to test you. It's tradition. New handler gets thrown into the deep end. See if they sink or swim. Usually, it's harmless. But if Madsen suspects anything, if he wants to send a message, he trailed off. Just be careful. What kind of test? They'll probably stick you in with one of the difficult dogs. See how you handle it. Sienna thought about Apex. Those cold eyes. That scar. The 3 handlers sent to medical. I can handle it. Dusty looked at her, and for just a moment, she saw her father looking back. The same expression Garrett Kelly would get before a mission, determination mixed with resignation. The face of someone who knew the odds and chose to fight anyway. Yeah, he said quietly, I reckon you can. The afternoon shift brought chaos. 8 Shash operators crowded into the kennel corridor, their presence filling the space with masculine energy and barely suppressed violence. These were men who jumped out of planes, kicked down doors, hunted human beings for a living. They carried themselves with the casual confidence of people who knew they were apex predators. Sienna stood near Kennel 3, trying to appear invisible while memorizing every face, every name, every detail. Major Grant Connolly arrived last, late 40s, salt and pepper hair, carrying himself with the ramrod straight posture of someone who'd spent 25 years in uniform. His chest displayed ribbons from Timor, Afghanistan, Iraq, a combat veteran through and through. He looked at Sienna with an expression that mixed skepticism and curiosity. Corporal Kelly, welcome to SASR K-9 operations. His voice carried the distinctive Aussie rasp. Your file says you're top of your class. We'll see if that translates to real-world performance. Yes, sir. Your father served under me. Garrett Kelly was one of the finest operators I ever knew. Saved my entire patrol in Uruzgan, 2009. His dog detected a Taliban ambush before they could spring it. Connolly's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you, sir. Baz Madsen stepped forward. Major, if I may, we have a tradition for new handlers. A sort of practical examination. Connolly nodded slowly. What did you have in mind? Kennel 7, let's see if she can handle Apex. The corridor fell silent. Several of the younger troopers exchanged glances. One of them, Coops Cooper, the cocky operator with too much confidence and not enough experience, grinned. The killer dog. Come on, sir, that's not fair. Fair's got nothing to do with it. Madsen replied. Combat's not fair. Operations aren't fair. If Kelly's going to handle our dogs downrange, she needs to prove she can control them when they're at their worst. Major Connolly looked uncertain. Baz, Apex has injured 3 people. Maybe we should. She'll be fine. Right, Kelly, your file says you're exceptional. Let's see exceptional. Sienna met his stare. She could see it now. Clear as day, the calculation behind his eyes. This wasn't about testing her skills. This was about sending a message. About establishing dominance. About showing Garrett Kelly's daughter exactly what happened to people who didn't follow Warrant Officer Madsen's rules. She could back down, refuse the test, request a different assignment, or she could do what her father would have done. "I'm ready, sir." Madsen's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Excellent, gentlemen, let's give Corporal Kelly some room to work." They moved as a group toward Kennel 7. Apex paced inside, a coiled spring of muscle and aggression. The dog had been isolated for 2 days. Sienna could see the signs: hyper-alertness, agitation, the kind of stress response that came from prolonged confinement and food deprivation. Dusty Miller stood near the back of the group, his face carefully neutral, but when Sienna caught his eye, she saw the concern there, the fear. Madsen unlocked the kennel door. "Simple test. Kelly, go in there and get Apex to perform 3 basic commands. Sit, stay, heel, do that, and you pass. And if I can't? Then maybe you're not cut out for this line of work." Cooper pulled out his phone. Hitting record. Other operators did the same. This wasn't just a test anymore. It was entertainment, a show, the new girl thrown to the wolves, literally, for their amusement. Sienna looked at Apex. The dog stared back, muscles taut, ready to explode into motion. She thought about her father, about the journal entry, about 12 years of questions and grief and rage that had brought her to this moment. About the promise she'd made at his grave. "Open the door," she said. Madsen's smile widened. "Your funeral." He pulled the door open, stepped aside, and made an exaggerated gesture, inviting her forward. Behind her, Coops's voice cut through the tension. "Die now, ya witch." Laughter rippled through the group. Harsh, cruel, the sound of men who believed they were about to witness someone learn a painful lesson about knowing their place. Sienna walked into the kennel. The door slammed shut behind her with the finality of a coffin lid closing. Apex turned to face her fully. The dog's lips pulled back, exposing teeth designed by millions of years of evolution for one purpose: killing. A low growl built in its chest, rising in volume and intensity. 3 meters of concrete separated them. Might as well have been 3 kilometers. Sienna stood perfectly still. She thought about what Dusty had said, about what her father had written, about the techniques Garrett Kelly had spent 30 years perfecting and had passed to his daughter during countless hours in kennels just like this one. Trust the dogs. They know who the wolves are. Apex launched forward, 38 kilos of predator closing distance in explosive bursts of speed. 3 strides. 2. 1. Sienna didn't run, didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. Instead, she did something that would have seemed insane to anyone watching from outside the kennel. She turned her body at a 45-degree angle, made herself smaller, lowered her center of gravity into a crouch. And she made a sound. A specific vocalization that came from deep in her throat. The sound a mother dog makes when calming her pups. A noise that exists below human speech. In the ancient language of pack animals. Her father had taught her to make it when she was 8 years old. Apex stopped, 2 meters away. The animal froze mid-stride, head tilting in confusion. The growl cut off abruptly. Sienna continued the vocalization, soft, rhythmic, non-threatening. She slowly sat down on the concrete floor, keeping her body angled away. Eyes averted, submissive posture, no challenge, no threat. She opened her hands, palms up, resting them on her knees. And she waited. Outside the kennel, the silence was absolute. Every operator watching had gone completely still. Even Coops's phone stopped shaking in his hand. Apex took a tentative step forward. Then another. The dog's nose worked overtime. Processing sense, reading information invisible to human senses. Sienna whispered, barely audible, "Easy, warrior. I know they hurt you. I know you're hungry. I know they made you into something you never wanted to be. But I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help." The dog moved closer cautiously, aggression giving way to curiosity. It sniffed her hands, her neck, her face, reading her story through scent and pheromones. Sienna slowly, so slowly it seemed like time itself had downshifted, raised her right hand. She moved it toward the dog's head, telegraphing the motion, giving Apex every opportunity to pull away. Her fingers found the spot just behind the dog's left ear, a pressure point she'd learned from her father. She applied gentle, circular pressure. Apex's eyes half closed. A sound emerged from the dog's throat. Not a growl this time, but something else, almost like a sigh. Sienna's other hand found the matching spot behind the right ear. She massaged both pressure points simultaneously, using her thumbs to work the tension out of muscles that had been wound tight for too long. That's it, she whispered. Let it go. You're safe now. I've got you. Apex made a sound that was almost a whimper. The kind of noise that suggested pain releasing, stress draining away. And then, in a movement that seemed to defy everything the observers thought they knew about this animal, the dog lay down, not in submission, in trust. Apex rested its massive head on Sienna's lap. She stroked the scarred muzzle, gently feeling the old wounds, the places where this magnificent animal had been hurt in service to humans who'd never properly thanked it. Good boy, she murmured, such a good boy. You've been so brave, so strong, but you don't have to fight anymore. Not with me, never with me. She sat there for a full minute, just breathing with the dog, feeling the rise and fall of its ribs, establishing connection, building trust, creating the foundation of a partnership. Finally, she spoke clearly, confidently, using the commands in German that SASR combat dogs were trained to understand. Sits, sit. The dog immediately sat up, attentive. Plats, down. Apex dropped into a prone position, eyes locked on Sienna's face. Fuss, heel. Apex moved to her left side, matching her pace perfectly as she stood and walked toward the kennel door. She knocked twice on the chain-link fence. The door opened. Sienna walked out with Apex at a perfect heel, the dog's shoulder aligned with her left leg, moving in synchronized steps that spoke of complete trust and understanding. The corridor remained silent. 8 SASR operators stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief. Cooper's phone had stopped recording, his jaw hanging open like someone had disconnected the muscles controlling it. Major Connolly slowly straightened from where he'd been leaning against the opposite wall. His eyes moved from Sienna to Apex and back again. I'll be damned, he said softly. Baz Madsen stood frozen, his face drained of color. Sienna watched emotions flicker across his features. Surprise, yes, but underneath that, something darker, something that looked almost like fear. She stopped directly in front of him. Apex sat without being commanded, a solid presence at her side. When Sienna spoke, her voice carried through the corridor with perfect clarity. Your training methods are outdated. Warrant officer, starvation and isolation don't create discipline, they create trauma. Apex isn't aggressive, he's terrified. He's been hurt, punished, treated like a weapon instead of a partner. And he deserves better. She paused, letting the words sink in. I'm Garrett Kelly's daughter. My father taught me that dogs are teammates, not tools. He taught me to earn their trust instead of demanding their submission. He taught me that real strength isn't about domination, it's about partnership. Another pause. Sienna looked at each face in turn, memorizing reactions, filing away information. I'm here to do his job the right way. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to collapse the building. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The sound echoed off concrete and faded into nothing. Major Connolly cleared his throat. I think we've seen enough. Corporal Kelly, welcome to the K-9 program. Officially, he turned to Madsen. Baz, assign her to the primary handler rotation. She's earned it. Madsen's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Yes, sir. The operators began filing out, conversations starting in low murmurs. Coops paused as he passed Sienna. That was incredible. I've never seen anyone handle Apex like that. Thank you. I'm sorry about earlier. The phone, the comment, that was out of line. Sienna studied him, young, maybe 23, still trying to prove himself. The kind of operator who acted tough because he wasn't entirely sure he was tough enough. Apex forgave you the moment I walked out of that kennel, she said. I can, too. He nodded, something like respect in his eyes, and walked away. Eventually, only 3 people remained in the corridor: Sienna, Dusty, and Baz Madsen. Madsen stared at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. You're good, better than I expected, but being good with dogs isn't enough. Combat operations require more than party tricks. I'm aware, sir. Your father was good, too, one of the best. Madsen's eyes went flat. He's dead, has been for 12 years. Maybe you should think about whether following in his footsteps is really the smart play. The threat wasn't subtle. Sienna held his gaze, refusing to look away first. I've thought about nothing else for 12 years. Warrant officer, and I'm exactly where I need to be. Something shifted in Madsen's expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of an enemy he'd underestimated. He turned and walked away without another word, his footsteps echoing until the corridor door slammed shut. Dusty limped over, his face a mixture of pride and concern. Your father would have been proud, he said quietly. That was exactly how he would have handled it. I learned from the best. But now Madsen knows you're a threat. He'll be watching you, every move, every interaction. If he suspects what you're really doing here, let him watch. Sienna looked down at Apex, who sat calmly at her side. The terror and aggression from earlier completely vanished. I'm not backing down, not now, not ever. Dusty nodded slowly. Then we need to be smart. Careful, your father rushed in when he found evidence of corruption, and they killed him for it. We can't make the same mistake. What do you suggest? We gather evidence, document everything, build a case so airtight that even Vance's political connections won't save him. He glanced toward where Madsen had disappeared. And we do it without tipping our hand until we're ready to move. Agreed, Sienna said, but there's something else I need to tell you. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I decoded another entry from my father's journal last night. From October 12, 2011, 3 days before he died. Dusty unfolded the paper. Read. His face went pale. The entry was simple, devastating. 5 Vipers confirmed. BM, RV, BH, DH, WS. Operation larger than suspected. Not just weapons. Radiological materials. Destination unknown. Payment $40 million over 3 years. Source inside SOCOMD providing protection. Must expose before next shipment. Meeting DM tomorrow. If I don't make it, Sienna will finish this. She's stronger than she knows. BH, DH, WS. Dusty read aloud. Any ideas? I've been cross-referencing personnel records from my father's final deployment. BH could be Blake Hutchinson, a captain, currently stationed with 2nd Commando Regiment. DH might be Derek Hollis, warrant officer, Special Operations. WS. She paused. I'm still working on that one. 5 corrupt operators running a smuggling operation for 15 years. Jesus Christ. Dusty refolded the paper with shaking hands. If this is true, if your father found evidence of radiological materials being smuggled by ADF personnel, then they killed him to protect a multi-million-dollar operation that's been funding terrorism for over a decade. They stood in the corridor, surrounded by the sounds of dogs and the smell of concrete and the weight of implications too large to fully process. We need to be careful, Dusty said again, if they even suspect. I know, but we also can't wait too long. Every day they operate is another day they're putting Australian lives at risk. Agreed. So, what's our next move? Before Sienna could answer, Major Connolly appeared in the doorway. His expression was grave. Kelly, Miller, my office, now. They followed him across the compound to a nondescript administration building. Connolly's office occupied a corner on the 2nd floor. Small, functional, walls covered with photos from deployments and commendations from wars. He closed the door behind him and gestured to chairs. Sit. They sat. Apex settled at Sienna's feet without being commanded. Connolly moved behind his desk but didn't sit. He stood with hands braced on the wooden surface, looking at them with an expression that mixed concern and calculation. I'm going to say something, and I need you both to listen carefully. Sienna, your performance today was exceptional. Too exceptional. You handled a dangerous animal with techniques that looked exactly like the ones your father used. Which raises some questions. Sir, I'm not finished. Garrett Kelly was my friend. He saved my life. When he died, I pushed for a full investigation. I was told to let it go. Operational security. Need to know. All the bureaucratic red tape that translates to shut up and follow orders. Connolly finally sat down, his chair creaking. I never bought the official story. IED explosion. Taliban ambush. Too convenient. Too clean. But I'm just a major. Colonel Vance is SOCOMD. He's got a bird on his shoulder and politicians on speed dial. I couldn't push without evidence. He looked directly at Sienna. You're here for a reason. And I don't think it's just to carry on your father's work. I think you're investigating his death. Silence filled the office. Outside, seagulls called. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. Sienna made a decision. Yes, sir, I am. Connolly nodded slowly, like he'd expected the answer. What have you found? Evidence that my father discovered a smuggling operation. 5 corrupt operators, possibly including Warrant Officer Madsen and Colonel Vance. Radiological materials sold to hostile entities. $40 million over 15 years. Christ, Connolly ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. Can you prove it? Not yet, but I will. And when you do, I'm bringing them all down. Every single one. The commander studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Dusty. And you're helping her. Garrett was my brother in everything but blood. If Sienna's right, if he was murdered by our own people, then yes, I'm helping her finish what he started. Connolly leaned back in his chair. Made a decision. We've got a mission. Kimberley Coast. 3 days from now. Counter-narcotics operation. Intel suggests major smuggling activity. Cocaine, weapons, high-value targets, SASR deployment. Full tactical package. He paused. You'll both be going. Sienna as primary K-9 handler. Dusty as civilian tactical advisor. It'll give you access to personnel, operations, communications. If there's corruption in this unit, a field deployment will expose it. Sir, Sienna said carefully, with respect, if Madsen is involved, putting us in the field with him could be dangerous. I know, that's why I'll be there, too, and Doc Sincade and a few other operators I trust absolutely. If Madsen makes a move, we'll be ready. Dusty leaned forward. Grant, you're risking your career. Hell, you're risking prison if this goes sideways. Garrett Kelly saved my life. I owe him a debt I can never repay. But maybe I can give his daughter a chance to get justice. Connolly stood. Mission brief is tomorrow at 0600. Get some rest. You're going to need it. They left the office and walked back across the compound in silence. The sun had started its descent toward the Indian Ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Combat colors. When they reached the kennels, Dusty stopped. There's something you should see. Come on. He led her around the back of the building to a small storage shed. Unlocked the door. Inside, covered in dusty tarps, sat boxes and crates marked with evidence tags. Your father's personal effects. Everything recovered from Taran Kaut. The army stored it here because he'd been assigned to this facility. Nobody ever claimed it. Sienna's throat tightened. Why didn't you tell me? I only found it 3 months ago. Been trying to figure out what to do with it ever since. He pulled a tarp off the nearest crate. Now I know. It belongs to you. She approached slowly, lifted the lid. Inside, carefully packed and labeled, were the fragments of Garrett Kelly's life. His gear, his weapons, his personal items, and underneath everything else, carefully wrapped in plastic, another journal. Sienna lifted it out with trembling hands. Opened to a random page. Her father's handwriting stared back at her. June 15, 2011. Taran Kaut. Another shipment confirmed tonight. Watched BM meeting with unknown contractors at 0300. Packages exchanged. Radiation signatures detected by Sergeant. My K-9 partner. This is bigger than I thought. Need to get evidence back to DM. If something happens to me. These journals contain everything. Tell Sienna I love her. Tell her to be brave. Tell her the pack protects the pack. There are 5 journals total. Dusty said quietly. I've been trying to decode them. But your father's cipher is too complex. I think he designed it that way. So only someone with his training, his knowledge, could read them. Someone like his daughter. Exactly. Sienna closed the journal carefully. I'll take them, all of them, and I'll decode every word. Be careful, if those journals contain evidence of corruption, and if the wrong people find out you have them. I know, but this is what I came here for. What I've been preparing for since I was 14 years old. They carried the crates to Sienna's assigned quarters. A small room in the junior enlisted barracks. Barely large enough for a bed and desk. Apex settled in the corner. Finally relaxed, the trauma of his morning experience fading under Sienna's gentle presence. After Dusty left, Sienna sat at the desk and opened the first journal. Started reading, her father's words, preserved across 12 years and thousands of kilometers. Speaking to her from beyond death. Hours passed, the sun set, darkness filled the room, broken only by a small desk lamp. At midnight, Sienna found an entry that made her blood run cold. October 14, 2011, final entry before mission. Tomorrow we patrol Route Viper. Standard sweep, but I have a bad feeling. BM volunteered to ride in my vehicle. Never done that before. RV personally selected the route. Also unusual, I've informed DM of my suspicions. Given him a copy of evidence. If I don't return, he knows what to do. To Sienna, if you're reading this. I'm gone. I'm sorry. I won't be there to teach you. Protect you. Watch you grow into the woman I know you'll become. But you're strong. Stronger than you know. Finish what I started. Expose the vipers. Protect the pack. Trust the dogs. They know who the wolves are. I love you, baby girl. Always and forever. Dad. Sienna closed the journal. Sat in darkness with Apex sleeping at her feet. And her father's final words echoing in her mind. I'll finish it, Dad, she whispered to the empty room. I promise. Every single one of them will pay. Apex raised his head, looked at her with those intelligent eyes. And in that moment, Sienna understood what her father had meant. Dogs knew. They could sense character, read intention, detect danger invisible to human senses. Apex had attacked her initially because he'd been conditioned to attack. But the moment she'd shown him kindness, respect, partnership, the moment she treated him like Garrett Kelly would have, the dog had known. She was pack, and the pack protected the pack. Sienna reached down and stroked Apex's scarred head. Tomorrow, boy, tomorrow we start hunting wolves. The dog's tail thumped once against the floor. A sound of agreement, of loyalty, of trust. Outside, the Indian Ocean crashed against the shore in endless rhythm. Inside, Sienna Kelly prepared for war. Not the kind fought with guns and grenades, but the kind fought with evidence and exposure. The kind that would either bring justice for her father or get her killed trying. She was ready for either outcome. The Outback night swallowed sound. 3 days had passed since Major Connolly's briefing in his cramped office. 3 days of preparation, weapons checks, intelligence reviews, and the careful dance of appearing normal while hunting traitors who wore the same uniform. 3 days of Sienna reading her father's journals late into the night, decoding entries that revealed the scope of corruption he'd uncovered before they killed him. Now she stood in darkness, deep in the Kimberley region, surrounded by desolation that stretched in every direction, the kind of wasteland where smugglers operated and people disappeared without questions being asked. Sienna moved through the night with Apex at her side, the dog's breathing synchronized with her own. 10 degrees Celsius now that the sun had set, cold enough that her breath misted in the air, visible even through her night vision goggles. The enhanced optics painted everything in shades of green and black, turning the landscape into something alien and hostile. Apex stopped suddenly, his ears rotated forward, nose twitching as he processed scents invisible to human perception. Contact. Sienna dropped to one knee behind a rock formation, one hand resting on the dog's shoulders. Through her night vision, she could see nothing yet. But Apex knew, 8 years of training compressed into 38 kilos of muscle and instinct. The dog had never been wrong. Alpha 6, this is Alpha 2, she kept her voice to a whisper, the throat mic picking up the sub-vocalization. Apex has a scent trail. Approximately 2 hours old, multiple individuals heading northwest toward the target building. Major Connolly's voice crackled through her earpiece. Copy, Alpha 2, hold position and observe. Do not advance until we have full team coordination. Roger. Sienna settled into her position, scanning the terrain ahead. The abandoned mining structure sat a kilometer distant, a relic from a forgotten prospecting boom, now repurposed for activities far less legal. Intelligence suggested tonight's meeting involved major drug cartel operations. 500 kilos of cocaine, plus unknown high-value cargo. What the intelligence hadn't mentioned was why Baz Madsen had volunteered to lead Bravo team for this operation. Or why he'd specifically requested that Sienna be assigned to Alpha Team instead of working under his direct command. Red flags, all of them. Apex's muscles tensed a fraction before Sienna's conscious mind registered the sound. Vehicle engines, distant but approaching. Alpha 6, contact. 3 vehicles inbound from south. Heavy class, approaching grid reference 729er. Visual confirmation. Sienna raised her night vision device to maximum magnification. 34x4s materialized from the darkness, moving in tactical formation, not the beat-up utes typical of local criminals. These were new, armored, moving with military precision. Confirmed, Black 4x4s. Armored configuration, military-style movement patterns. Sir, this doesn't match our intelligence profile. A pause on the radio. When Connolly spoke again, his voice carried tension. All teams, weapons hold, something's wrong here. The vehicles stopped near the mining structure. Doors opened with synchronized precision. Personnel dismounted, 8 individuals, all moving with the kind of tactical efficiency that came from military training. Even at this distance, their silhouettes screamed operator, not cartel thugs. Apex growled softly, not his aggressive sound, his warning sound, the one that meant danger of a different kind than expected. Good boy, Sienna whispered, fingers working through the fur behind his ears. I see them, too. She watched the operators move to the rear vehicles and begin unloading cargo. Metal cases, approximately 60 centimeters long, 45 wide, heavy enough that it took 2 men to carry each one. Sienna zoomed her optics, trying to get better resolution. The cases had stenciled markings on their sides. Faded, barely visible even with night vision enhancement. Then she saw it clearly. 3 triangles arranged in a trefoil pattern, the international symbol for radioactive materials. Her heart rate spiked. Alpha 6, the cargo isn't drugs. Repeat, I'm seeing radiation hazard symbols on the cases. This is not a standard cartel operation. Say again, Alpha 2. The cases have radiation warnings. Sir, military transport containers. These aren't smugglers. These are operators moving weapons-grade materials. A new voice cut into the radio net. Warrant Officer Baz Madsen, commanding Bravo team from his Overwatch position 300 meters east. Alpha 6. Bravo 1 confirms Alpha 2's assessment. I have visual on the containers. Those are radiological transport cases. Military specification. How the hell did cartel smugglers get radioactive materials? Connolly's confusion was obvious. Sienna's mind raced through possibilities, discarding the implausible ones. They didn't. Sir, look at the personnel, their movement patterns, their gear, their discipline. These aren't cartel members. These are trained military operators. Before anyone could respond, the desert night exploded. Gunfire shattered the silence. Muzzle flashes strobed in the darkness as a third force, actual cartel thugs. 15 or 20 of them, ambushed the group near the mining structure. The distinctive chatter of AK-47s mixed with the sharper reports of M4 carbines returning fire. All teams, Connolly's voice cut through the chaos. We have active engagement, multiple hostiles. Alpha and Bravo teams move to contain. Charlie team, establish perimeter, rules of engagement, weapons free if fired upon. Priority objective, secure those containers before they disappear. Sienna was already moving before the order finished. Apex matched her stride perfectly, both of them flowing across broken ground like shadows. Her training took over, the countless hours at Holsworthy, the endless repetitions, the muscle memory built through sweat and discipline, and her father's voice in her head, stay low, move fast, trust your dog. She reached a position 40 meters from the firefight and dropped prone behind a low ridge. Apex pressed against her side, solid and warm and absolutely steady despite the chaos erupting ahead. Through the strobing muzzle flashes, she tracked 3 operators struggling with containers, trying to evacuate toward their vehicles while their teammates provided covering fire. Alpha 2 has eyes on package. 3 individuals attempting exfil with containers, heading northeast. Intercept if possible, Connolly ordered, but do not engage alone. Wait for backup. Footsteps approached from her right. Sienna spun, weapon rising, finger taking slack on the trigger. Dusty Miller materialized from darkness. Late 60s, but moving with the fluid precision of someone who'd spent 40 years in combat. He carried his M4 like it was an extension of his body. I'm with you, he said simply. No discussion, no debate, just the statement of someone who'd made a decision. They moved together toward the mining structure entrance. The 3 men with containers had already disappeared inside an old shaft leading underground. Sienna gestured to Apex. The dog's nose went to work immediately, tracking scents through gunpowder residue and dust. The shaft descended at a steep angle. Emergency lighting, recently installed, not original to the mine, cast everything in harsh shadows. Metal grating rang under their boots. Somewhere ahead, voices echoed back, distorted by stone walls and distance. Sienna held up a fist. Stop, listen. The voices grew clearer. Should have been clear. Someone talked. Doesn't matter now. Get the package to the secondary site. Vance will handle the cleanup. Vance. Colonel Richard Vance. The name from her father's journal. Sienna looked at Dusty, saw recognition flash in his eyes. Understanding, confirmation that the conspiracy was real. Was here, was happening right now. They moved forward, weapons up, Apex leading but silent as death itself. The shaft opened into a larger chamber. An old equipment room, now repurposed as a staging area. Industrial shelving lined the walls. And 3 men in tactical gear were loading containers onto a hidden ATV. Sienna stepped into the chamber. Glock 18 pistol extended in a 2-handed grip. Federal police, don't move. It was a bluff. She wasn't AFP. But the psychology worked on instinct. Most people froze when confronted with authority and weapons. 2 of the 3 operators started to comply. Hands rising slowly, professional enough to recognize when they were outgunned. The 3rd man reached for his sidearm. Apex was faster. The Belgian Malinois launched across 5 meters of space in less than 2 seconds. 38 kilos of trained fury hit the gunman's center mass. The impact drove him backward. Apex's jaws clamped onto his weapon arm just below the elbow. Bone crunched audibly. The man screamed, his pistol clattering across the stone floor, skittering into shadows. Apex, hold, Sienna commanded. The dog maintained his grip but didn't tear. Perfect control, holding the threat immobile without causing unnecessary damage beyond the initial takedown. Dusty moved forward with cable ties ready. On your knees, hands behind your heads, now. The 2 uninjured operators complied. They were professionals, knew when they were beaten, knew that resistance would only make things worse. Sienna kept her weapon trained on them while Dusty secured their wrists with zip ties, cinching them tight. Who do you work for? Sienna demanded. Silence. Both men stared straight ahead, expressions blank. They'd been trained to resist interrogation. Those containers are radiological materials. Weapons grade. You're transporting materials that could be used in terrorist attacks. That's federal prison for life. No parole, unless you cooperate. Still nothing. Sienna tried a different approach. My father discovered this operation 12 years ago. Warrant Officer Garrett Kelly, you know that name? A flicker in one man's eyes. Recognition, fear, maybe. He threatened to expose you. So you killed him, made it look like an IED. But he left evidence, journals, documentation, names. She paused, letting it sink in. I know about the 5 SASR operators running this. I know about Colonel Vance. I know about Warrant Officer Madsen. And I know about you. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush stone. Then a voice spoke from the shadows at the chamber's far end. They work for me. Warrant Officer Baz Madsen stepped into the light. His M4 rifle was pointed directly at Sienna's chest. Behind him, 2 more operators emerged from concealment. All 3 had clear lines of fire. Time seemed to slow. Sienna's mind processed 1,000 details. Madsen's positioning, tactically perfect. His weapon selector switch set to full auto. His expression, cold calculation, no hesitation. Lower your weapon, Kelly, Madsen said calmly, or I put 3 rounds in your chest before you can blink. Sienna didn't move. You killed my father. Your father was a liability. Smart man, exceptional handler, but too much integrity for his own good. Madsen's tone held no remorse. Just flat pragmatism. He found out about our operation. Threatened to expose us. Destroy everything we'd built over 15 years. So, we eliminated the problem. You murdered him. We removed a threat to operational security. There's a difference. This operation has generated over $40 million since 2009. Supplied materials to clients who pay in cash. No questions asked. Your father wanted to throw all that away over abstract principles like honor and duty. Madsen shook his head. He gave us no choice. There's always a choice. Not in our world. In our world, you're either a predator or prey. Your father chose wrong, and now you're standing exactly where he stood, making the same mistakes, about to learn the same lesson. Sienna's finger rested on her trigger. She could shoot, but his 2 backup operators would kill her and Dusty before their bodies hit the ground. Tactical mathematics. Unwinnable odds. How did it happen? Sienna asked. Buying time. My father's death. I want to know exactly how you did it. Madsen considered, then shrugged. Why not? You'll be dead in 5 minutes anyway. Derek Hollis planted the IED on your father's patrol route. I provided the intelligence. Told Garrett his team needed to sweep Route Viper. Said there was high-value intelligence. He trusted me. Never suspected his warrant officer would send him straight into a kill zone. The IED went off. But my father survived the initial blast. He did. Thrown clear. Broken legs. Burns. But alive. So Derek finished the job. Put a knife in his chest. Made sure there were no survivors who could ask inconvenient questions. Then we called it in. Taliban ambush. IED explosion. Case closed. Sienna's hands trembled with rage. Her father hadn't died instantly. He'd survived. Had time to realize he'd been betrayed. Had time to feel the blade that ended his life. You son of a bitch. I'm a realist. Your father was an idealist. That's why he's dead, and I'm about to retire with 20 million in offshore accounts. Madsen's weapon never wavered. Now put the gun down. Or I kill all 3 of you right here. Movement exploded from multiple directions simultaneously. Dusty, despite his age and that limp, moved with the muscle memory of combat. He lunged sideways toward Madsen, bringing his M4 up. Sienna dropped and rolled left, firing 2 shots at the nearest backup operator. Both rounds hit center mass. The man went down hard. Apex, loyal, brilliant, perfectly trained Apex, launched himself at the second backup operator without being commanded. Pure pack loyalty. 38 kilos of Malinois hit the man before he could fire. Jaws clamping onto his gun arm, dragging him to the ground. Gunfire erupted in the enclosed space. Deafening, muzzle flashes strobed, cordite smoke filled the air. Sienna fired again at the operator she'd hit, made sure he stayed down, then pivoted toward Madsen, but Dusty was in the way. The 2 men were grappling, struggling for their weapons. Madsen broke free, swung his rifle like a club. The stock caught Dusty across the side of his head with a sickening crack. The older man staggered, blood streaming from his temple. No, Sienna moved forward, but Madsen was already moving. He kicked Dusty's rifle away, then dropped his own weapon and pulled a knife. A 7-inch combat blade. I gutted your father with this, Madsen said, breathing hard, looked him in the eyes while he bled out. He kept talking about honor, right up until I twisted the knife. Rage flooded through Sienna, white hot. She could shoot him, Should shoot him, but she needed him alive. Needed his testimony. Justice required sacrifice. Her father had taught her that. On your knees, Sienna said, her voice steady, hands behind your head, you're under arrest. Madsen laughed. You don't have the guts. Just like Garrett didn't. He moved fast, professional. The blade came up in a gutting stroke. Sienna twisted, the blade missing by inches. She brought her pistol up, but Madsen was inside her reach now, his free hand catching her wrist, forcing the weapon aside with brutal strength. He had 25 kilos on her and decades of experience. He forced her backward against the stone wall. The impact drove the air from her lungs. The knife came up again, aimed at her throat. And then Apex hit Madsen from behind. The dog's jaws clamped onto Madsen's knife arm at the elbow joint. Bone crunched. Madsen screamed, a sound of pure agony. The knife fell from nerveless fingers. Sienna didn't hesitate. She brought her knee up into Madsen's groin. Once, twice. The warrant officer doubled over. She stepped back, raised her pistol, and fired once. The round hit Madsen's left shoulder, placed to incapacitate without killing. He collapsed. Apex, out, Sienna commanded. The dog released immediately, returning to her side. Dusty was on his feet now, bleeding but functional. He collected the fallen weapons. Sienna stood over Madsen, weapon pointed at his face. Warrant Officer Barry Madsen, you're under arrest for treason, smuggling, conspiracy to commit murder, and the murder of Warrant Officer Garrett Kelly. Save it. Madsen laughed wetly. You think catching me changes anything? Vance knows you're here. He's got contingencies for contingencies. You're not taking down the operation. You're just signing your own death warrant. Then we'll see who dies first. Dusty's hand rested gently on her shoulder. Don't. Is not worth it, and we need him alive. She took a shuddering breath. Lowered the weapon. Get me restraints. Outside the chamber, the firefight had ended. Radio chatter indicated the SASR teams had subdued the cartel members. But 3 of Madsen's men had escaped with 2 containers of radioactive materials. Major Connolly met them at the mine entrance. His expression cycled through shock, fury, and grim satisfaction as he took in the scene. Warrant Officer Madsen, Connolly said quietly, I've known you for 15 years. Served with you, trusted you, and you've been a traitor the entire time. Save the moralizing. Grant, I did what was necessary. You murdered Garrett Kelly. I did, and I'd do it again. At the base, the Australian Federal Police were already waiting. Detective Superintendent Torres, 40s, steel grey eyes, took custody of Madsen immediately. Over the next 6 hours, faced with overwhelming evidence, he talked. He confirmed everything: the smuggling operation, the 5 conspirators, the murder of Garrett Kelly, and he named Colonel Richard Vance as the mastermind. That evening, Sienna's phone rang. Unknown number. Corporal Kelly, my name is Colonel Richard Vance. I believe we need to talk. Sienna's hand tightened on the phone. I have nothing to say to you. Even if I can offer information about your father's death? I have footage. Sienna, video from the operation. Would you like to see how Garrett Kelly really died? Her breath caught. Meet me tomorrow night. Campbell Barracks, Building 47, the old warehouse district, 2200 hours. Come alone. It's a trap. Of course it is, but you'll come anyway, because you need the truth more than you need safety. Just like your father. The line went dead. Dusty appeared in her doorway minutes later. It's Vance. He wants to meet, says he has footage of my father's death. It's an ambush that will end with you dead. So what do I do? Let him walk? No, Dusty said. We'll be smarter than your father. We bring in Torres, Connolly, everyone we trust, and we turn Vance's trap into ours. The next morning, chaos. Sienna arrived at the kennels to find Coop standing outside. Face pale, blood on his uniform. Luna, his voice broke. Someone got to her, poisoned her food. She's gone. Vance, sending a message. Rage flooded through Sienna, but she forced it down, channeled it into cold determination. 2 hours later, they drove to Dusty's apartment to retrieve evidence. They'd made it into the car park when the explosion hit. A fireball erupted from underneath Dusty's ute. The concussive blast threw them against their seats. Sienna's ears rang. She saw Dusty slumped against the driver's door, blood streaming from his forehead. Dusty, she kicked her door open, pulled him out, dragging him away from the burning vehicle just as the fuel tank exploded. A second, larger blast sent shrapnel raining down. Sienna threw herself over Dusty, shielding him. Something hot scored across her back. Pain exploded, but she held position. At the hospital, surgeons worked for 6 hours. He would live, just. He's scared, Dusty whispered from his hospital bed. Desperate, making mistakes, Promise me, Sienna, tomorrow night, you finish this. She squeezed his hand. I promise. The warehouse loomed against the night sky. Building 47, Sienna stood outside the main entrance at 21:45 hours. Apex pressed against her left leg. She wore a jacket concealing a button camera transmitting to Torres and Connolly 300 meters away. Alpha 6, Alpha 2 in position, she whispered. Copy. Connolly's voice crackled in her earpiece. Overwatch confirms 4 heat signatures inside. Last chance to abort, Sienna. There is no other way. The door swung open. She stepped inside. 4 figures stood in the center of the vast space. Colonel Richard Vance, flanked by Captain Blake Hutchinson, Warrant Officer Derek Hollis, and another operator she recognized as Wyatt Sheffield. Thank you for meeting me, Corporal Kelly. Vance's tone was pleasant. You came alone. Smart decision. I came for answers. You said you have footage. I do, but first, let's establish understanding. Vance gestured to his men. You're outnumbered and outgunned. He pulled a tablet from his vest. Before I show you this, understand something about your father. He prioritized honor over profit. In our line of work, that's a death sentence. He turned the tablet toward her. Watch. The screen showed grainy night vision footage. A Humvee, her father in the passenger seat. The date, October 15, 2011. The K-9, Sergeant, started barking frantically. An explosion. The camera spun wildly. When it stabilized, the vehicle was destroyed. A figure approached the wreckage. Pulled her father out. He was alive. Badly injured, but alive. The figure was Derek Hollis. He spoke. Words garbled by fire. Then he pressed a blade against Garrett Kelly's chest. Her father's body went rigid. The light faded from his eyes. The footage ended. Sienna stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. You murdered him, she whispered. We eliminated a threat, Vance corrected. He discovered our operation. We gave him opportunities to walk away. He refused. I'm showing you this so you understand what you're up against. We've been running this for 16 years. We have protection at every level. We've eliminated everyone who threatened us. He took a step forward. I'm offering you what I never offered Garrett, a choice. Walk away, live your life. Sienna looked at them. 4 men who'd betrayed everything. 4 men who'd murdered her father for money. I have a counteroffer. She said clearly. You confess. All of you, right now, and maybe the judge shows mercy. Vance laughed. You think you have leverage? I think Warrant Officer Madsen is in federal custody providing detailed testimony. I think the AFP has financial records. And I think you just confessed to my father's murder on camera. Sienna tapped her jacket. Body cam, audio and video. Detective Superintendent Torres has been recording since I walked in here. The laughter stopped. Vance's hand moved toward his sidearm. All units, execute, execute, execute. Connolly's voice exploded through loudspeakers. Doors crashed open. AFP tactical teams poured in. Federal police, hands up. Vance's pistol came up, tracking toward Sienna. Apex launched. The dog hit Vance center mass. Jaws clamping on his gun arm. The pistol discharged. The round going wide. Blake Hutchinson raised his rifle. Was met by a volley of return fire that broke his ribs through his body armor. Derek Hollis tried to run. Froze when Connolly emerged from behind crates. Wyatt Sheffield dropped his weapon immediately. Hands shooting skyward. Within 30 seconds, it was over. Torres approached Sienna, holstering her weapon. You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Her voice shook. Apex, release. The dog let go, trotting back to her side. Colonel Richard Vance, Torres said, hauling the man to his feet. You're under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 40 other federal charges. Your operation is done. You're done. Dusty appeared at her side, having signed himself out of the hospital against medical advice. You did it, kid, he said quietly. You got 'em all. Major Connolly approached. Warrant Officer Kelly, hell of a job. Sienna blinked. Sir, I'm not. You are now. Emergency field promotion, approved by SOCOMD within the last hour. Effective immediately, Connolly extended a set of warrant officer's insignia. The rank her father held. He held this rank, now you do, too. Sienna took them with trembling hands. Every soldier and police officer in the warehouse saluted. She returned the salute, tears streaming down her face. 3 months later, the memorial service was everything the first funeral hadn't been. Full military honors. A new headstone marked Garrett Kelly's grave. Warrant Officer Class 1 Garrett Kelly, SASR, 1970 to 2011. Murdered in service to his country. Justice served 2024. Trust the dogs. They know the truth. Sienna stood at attention in her dress blues. New insignia gleaming. Apex sat beside her. The rifle volleys cracked. A bugler played taps. The flag was folded and presented to her. After, she stood before the memorial. I did it, Dad. Got 'em all. They're in federal prison for life. The operation is shut down. You can rest now. Apex leaned against her leg. I've got your job now. Training handlers your way. Teaching them that honor matters. That integrity matters. She stood and saluted one final time. Rest easy, Warrant Officer. Your daughter's got it from here. A year after that, Warrant Officer Sienna Kelly stood before her first class of K-9 handler trainees. 20 students. Apex trotted to her side. My name is Warrant Officer Kelly. She began. My father taught me that dogs are not tools. They are not weapons. They are partners, teammates, warriors. He taught me to trust the dogs. They know who the wolves are. Listen to them, learn from them, become pack with them, and they will never let you down. 2 years after the arrests, on the anniversary of her father's death, Sienna returned to the cemetery. Apex walked beside her, grey creeping into his muzzle but still strong. Fresh flowers already sat at the base of the memorial. She knelt, placing her own, a new photograph. It showed her in her warrant officer's uniform, standing beside 20 K-9 handler graduates. All of them with their dogs. All of them ready to serve with honor. Your legacy continues, Dad, she whispered. Through them, through me, the pack is strong. The Indian Ocean wind carried her words away. She sat there for a long time, remembering, grieving, honoring. Then she stood, saluted one final time, and walked back toward the future. Behind her, the memorial stood silent and permanent. A reminder, a warning, a promise kept.